Here again with another movie review. I literally just 10 seconds ago just finished watching the new film Young Adult, which is directed by Jason Reitman, who's done films like Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking, my personal favorite that he's done. This is the new film that he's directed and is written by Diablo Cody, who I know wrote The Devil Wears Prada, but I don't really remember much else besides that. It was kind of interesting to see how these two would work together because they're kind of similar but very different at the same time, so I was very interested to see this movie just to see how it turned out. And Young Adult stars Charlize Theron as a writer for these teen novels, or young adult novels as the title of the movie is. She is basically just a child herself. She goes back to her small town in Minnesota, Mercury, Minnesota, to try to win back her ex-flame in high school, played by Patrick Wilson, and just so she can be free and be happy again, and she thinks that this will kind of make her feel happy again and somehow complete her life. And she's basically tearing apart her ex's home. She's just a homewrecker because he has a wife and 2 kids. And it's basically just kind of her going through the motions, trying to get this crazy situation to happen. And she meets up with another person from high school, played by Patton Oswalt, who's trying to talk some sense into her. Young Adult is one of the most odd movies I've seen probably this year and last year, because it really left me with mixed emotions. I think this is going to be a film that you're going to really like or you're going to absolutely hate. And I'm really just kind of in the middle, and I'm kind of more towards the negative side. First, I think the performances by everybody are really strong. Jason Reitman, one of the things I do like about him is usually does get really good performances from his cast. I think Charlize Theron is really good as the main character. You hate her. Like, she kind of rivals with Cameron Diaz from Bad Teacher. They're kind of like, if they would be friends in real life if they were really real-life people. And she does a good job. She's unlikable, but you could see why she's like that, and her character is pretty well written. And other characters are Patrick Wilson as the old flame, and I always like Patrick Wilson. I love that guy. He's great and everything. But my personal favorite is Patton Oswalt, who's a really funny comic, and he's the guy who's the kind of the nerd loser guy from high school that's trying to talk sense into her, and you like him because he's the funny one, and he's the only one that's trying to talk sense into her. I really like those characters. I like the characters. I think they're all interesting in their own way, and they have a cool dynamic, and I think they're very well written. I think Diablo Cody gives them a decent amount of backstory, or the needed amount that you need to kind of know and care about some of these characters, and that's what makes them interesting. The movie moves at a brisk pace. It's short. It's not even an hour and a half. So you're never really bored. It's just kind of a quick in and out movie. You're like, wow, that was fast, which is another problem I kind of had with the movie, but I'll get to that later. So I think the film overall, on a performance level and a script level, is pretty good when it comes to the characters and dialogue. I have some problems with the script, which I'll talk about later also, but for the main part, I thought those guys were fine. I thought everybody was fine, and I thought the writing for those types of characters were fine. But Young Adult, just everything it does right, it does something wrong, and it's a really frustrating movie to watch. It's definitely one of the most complex experiences I've had watching a movie this whole year. The plot of this movie sounds kooky because the girl Charlize Theron plays, I think her name is Malvis, I forgot her name. She has a weird name. She goes back to her small town in Minnesota to win over this married guy, and Patton Oswalt is telling her that she's delusional, and she's an interesting character to watch because the stuff she gets herself into is so awkward to watch. Like in Bad Teacher, Cameron Diaz would get into really weird, funny situations because the character that she's in, but those were at least fun to watch her get out of. This one, they're really awkward, even though it's kind of supposed to be like that because it's supposed to be more realistic. Some of the things she does is just so, like, what are you thinking? You must have some kind of... There is something wrong with you. You're missing something in here. You're like the person you played in Monster.
think you're crazy. I think you're crazy.
The main character is unlikable, and I don't mind that. I like seeing unlikable characters in movies. I think they're more interesting than some of the likable characters. But there's just some stuff that she does is like, what are you thinking, lady? She really doesn't have any redeemable qualities that I can think of, and that's why I think I like Patton Oswalt so much, is because he's kind of like the words of wisdom guy. He's the only one that's kind of maintaining it together, and he's kind of the only light person and the kind of break you get from all the madness in the movie. Whenever there's like a good line of dialogue or like an interesting scene, Diablo Cody's script just puts in some really awkward scenes that don't really make sense to some of the characters, like some of the stuff that Patton Oswalt does with Charlize Theron, near the end, just was really confusing. It's like, why did you make that choice at the end? You had this whole character like this, and then, stop right here, and then you have this huge character change, kinda, or at least in my opinion, a huge character change. Like, you would never be doing that at the beginning of the movie, why are you doing it now? She doesn't really evolve throughout the movie, and that's kind of one of the things I had a problem with, is that, don't get me wrong, this movie doesn't have to have a Hollywood ending or a moral. I actually respect movies that don't do that. Like, a lot of the movies this year have come out has been more ballsy in doing that, but this one just ends so abruptly. You're just kind of like, well, what was the point? And I was like, please don't, like, it fades to black, and you're like, please don't end on that, please don't end on that, and you're like, credits roll, you ended on that, why? So the whole movie just doesn't really have, it doesn't really have a point to me. It's like, why did I invest myself in these people to see what they would happen if they didn't have that great of an arc, in my perspective? And I don't even need them to have a happy ending. Like I said, I just want them to have some sort of arc, and they didn't really have that. And like I said, there's a lot of points in the movie where you're like, okay, that's kind of clever, but then they ruin it with some weird, bizarre scene that doesn't really make any sense. For me, young adult, it's just such a frustrating movie, because when you try to like it, it does something so off character that you just can't get into it. So I'm very split on Jason Reitman's filmography. There's some stuff I like Up in the Air I thought was good, albeit overrated, and I really love Thank You for Smoking. That's probably in like my top 25 movies. This one I kind of didn't like. It's just a really frustrating movie to watch, and an ending that just kind of leaves you sitting there like, okay, why? What was the point of this movie? So it's kind of a frustrating experience, and I'm kind of more on the negative side. It's kind of like one of those movies you're going to love or hate, and I'm kind of more towards the not hating it, but kind of disliking it side. So I'm going to have to give Young Adult 2 stars out of 5. I think it's a kind of rather unnecessary, frustrating movie with good performances and an occasional strong script. But overall, I wouldn't really check it out. I would say maybe rent it, but I think it's really just decide for yourself, because it's going to be split down the middle. But if you like my review, please subscribe, rate, and comment. I'm going to be seeing The Sitter this weekend, and I have screenings or screeners at my house for Tintin and Warhorse, so I'm going to try to get those back before, I'm going to try to watch those and get those reviews done before I have to give them back. Once again, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my review, and see you guys later.